Hey ladies and gents, it's Zembak and we are talking about fighters and carriers in this video on Avorion. So I got another video coming up here in the next week or so, and it's going to be a complete design of a ship from start to finish. Specifically, this is going to be a missile cruiser. We're going to go through the whole process of building it, arming it, all that kind of stuff. So hopefully you guys stick around for that one. However, today we're going to talk about carriers and fighters. Carriers and fighters are the most versatile ship that you will build. They streamline a lot of things, especially gathering resources, and they are for the most part rather OP when it comes to attacking or destroying enemy ships. Now, we're all familiar with this ship. I fly this one quite a bit, the Durandal. We are going to go into the build mold here and take a look at it from, like this, right? So, we've all seen this ship. You've all seen this. If you've watched any episodes, you know this is my main ship that I've used from pretty much since I got into the Tritium level and I designed it and built it and all that kind of stuff. It is a carrier to a certain degree. When I was building it, this was going to be used. I used this specifically for for salvaging, for raiding, right? So I carried salvage fighters with me, and simply what all that requires is a hangar bay, which are these lower parts right here. These are called hangars, Tritium hangar bays, right? And we're going to look at that here right now. There we go. You will find when you get into the Tritium is when you're going to be able to, the first time you're going to be able to build a hangar bay. You're not going to find it in the Neonite. It's only found in the Tritium section. So once you get to Tritium is when you're going to be able to start carrying fighters. And a Tritium hangar is pretty simple to build. You can mount them on any ship you have. You can make specifically designed ships, whether to be a carrier, or you can simply add carrier bays to every ship that you have. Like I said, this was a designed as it's just simply adding the carrier hangar here. So I've built the carrier hangar. We're going to rotate it. I want it to go with my ship like this, and we're going to add it to, I don't know, here, right? So carrier bay or the hangar bay. As long as you have you have the two white lines on both sides of it, that means it's unobstructed. That means any fighter can go in and out of it, no problem. If it's not white on either side, for example, if it's red, that means the fighter can't get in and out of the hangar, right? There's something obstructing the deal. And this is, people were like, wow, geez, why can't this work? Well, it's not working because you have to have an unobstructed hangar. So white on both sides, you're good to go. And you can, like I said, you can put these hangars on any ship that you have and turn it into a carrier to a certain degree. Obviously in this video, this one here, I have two hangars below my ship. They carry roughly the capacity here is 2,065. I currently have 258 of 2,065 for fighters. And we'll look at the fighters I have on board right now. And those are, in fact, salvage fighters. Like I said, this is my main raider. I'm out raiding stuff as I'm blowing up ships and taking the cargo. My salvage fighters, of course, are simply salvaging everything I blow up. Real easy. I don't have to do it myself manually. I can simply do it using the salvage fighters. And that's usually pretty easy because it's just a command on the side over here. So you click on your new squad and it'll say attack, defend, harvest, return, collect, lost fighters. You just click on whatever you want. For example, if I wanted to salvage that ship right there, the Red Witch, I would click on that, and then I would just simply go over here and I would choose the attack, right? Fighters will stream out. It'll go over there and start salvaging or attacking, I guess, that ship and taking, usually you want to do this on a dead Hulk or a dead ship to get the materials off of it. That's simply how you do it using the salvage fighters. So, like I said, real simple with the carriers. You can turn any ship into a carrier as long as you put the hangar bays on, which you get at the Tritium level. I have specifically designed ships. For example, this one up here, the Akagi, which is designed solely as a carrier. Huge, massive cargo bay, 14,887 capacity, way bigger than I need. However, when I was designing the ship, I was upsizing it as I went. And this carries right currently at, so you get 10 squadrons of 12 ships and these ones are size 5. So yeah, they're largish fighters. This is hence why you get the number of 1,860. Obviously, the capacity of 1,487. And I have no salvage fighters on it. This is just pure offensive fighters that I use to attack other ships. Now, I do have specific design carriers for things. This one's actually a salvage carrier, as you can see. I build this one, put it full of salvage fighters, take it to a system, and I salvage the shit out of it. Same way with this one. This one is designed specifically for mining. Yeah, the designs. This is something I screwed on. This is my very first carrier I ever built to do something other than raid with. This was designed just as a mining. This was a long time ago when I first started playing the game. So I kept it around. I still use the design. I don't need to. I have other newer designs, but however, it's kind of nostalgic, whatever. So I keep this one right here, and I just put it on mining fighters, drop it into a system, set it to self-mine, and it will mine the shit out of everything in the sector, and I don't have to come back and worry about it. There's usually 24 mining fighters on here. This salvage carrier here can carry 120 salvage. I take this with me if I'm mining, for example, attacking a whole system where I'm taking out stations and other ships. I just pull this with me, take this with me, drop it, put it on auto, and it automatically starts to salvage everything. Same way with this one. This one works on the same principle: attack, defend, depending on what, of course, kind of fighter you have. Right now, if I wanted to destroy that computer component, I would just simply put attack. All the fighters boil out, take this and destroy this in a matter of a couple seconds, because these are some extremely powerful fighters in this carrier. Yeah, easy way to use the fighters. So that's the carriers. Not much to be said. Like I said, you can turn any fighter or any ship into a carrier if you wish. So let's get back to, where's my little friend at? There he is. So we're going to jump back over to the Durandal, and we're going to start building some fighters. There is actually 2 ways to get fighters in this game. You can, for example, here's the equipment dock, buy your fighters, which I did early in the game. Oh, I'm sorry. Apparently I hit the wrong button here. There we go. We're going to interact with that. You can buy the fighters, which you can buy at the equipment dock. You go into the equipment dock here, find equipment docks everywhere, and you simply trade equipment, and there'll be a list of current available fighters. Right now there's chain gun fighters, mining fighters, Tesla fighters, cannon fighters, more mining fighters. Whatever you want to use here, you can just simply buy. A lot of times it's easier just to buy these. These are relatively cheap compared to what if you actually manufactured a fighter. You want the high-end fighters, you're going to have to build them. These are low-end. Early in the game, it's fine just to buy these things. For example, the mining fighters, super cheap, cheaper than you're probably going to be able to. For example, this one is a 63% efficiency, 9 million piece. A lot of times it's just cheaper to buy these mining fighters as to actually produce them, unless you get a really spectacular mining turret that you find. A lot of times I just do that. When I first started out building, say for example, these defense bases, and I didn't want to spend a whole bunch of cash filling them full of fighters, I just simply bought defense fighters from the equipment docks. So for example, like this one here, the defense asteroid Zeus, it has 2 really good squadrons of fighters, and the rest of them are ones I just bought. So they're not really powerful. However, there's just a ton of them. The two really good squadrons do most of the damage. The other one's just kind of a filler. They end up getting destroyed. Whatever, it doesn't matter. They were cheap to begin with. So that's one way to get fighters. The other way, of course, is to build them, and this is what comes into effect here, which is the fighter factory. You'll find these in every sector you go, anywhere you go. So to build one, and then there's a few things you got to remember when you build this. You got to be docked to the station, and you actually have to have the hangar bays installed already on your ship to make this work. So pulled up to our fighter factory, and we are going to interact with it. So we're going to build some fighters. Real simple here. You're going to get your blueprints over here. Now, as long as your blueprint ship is under 200 blocks, you can use it for a fighter. Some of these are way over 200 blocks. Some of these are under 200 blocks. This is my typical, see, that one's way too many blocks. That one's probably... Apparently that one's under 200 blocks too, but I have a specific one I use, which is this one. Nope. Where is he at? Here he is. That's the this is the typical one I use for a fighter design. Now it does not matter anything about, you can build this fighter and don't even worry about shields, don't worry about energy, none of that kind of stuff, because it doesn't matter with fighters, right? You don't have to have a specific number of terawatts or generated energy or shields and all that kind of stuff. It doesn't matter with the fighters. You're just using the design. The things about when it comes down to it is going to be, of course, the points that you apply to the ship, right? So these weapons over here will run no matter if you have any power at all to the ship, right? So some of the laser weapons require energy. Doesn't matter what your fighter has for energy capacity, because for some reason it just glosses over that, and you can do it however you want. So now I have some relatively powerful. There's a coaxial Tesla. One. Well, let's go up here to the player menu here. I'm going to transfer some more powerful turrets to here. And we're going to go by DPS. So these ones are 91,000. And where's my alliance stuff here? Oops. Let's go with this one here to the DPS. There we go. So these are 61,000, 26,000. Oops, rarity. And go by materials. So these are 45,000. We'll just use those. And these ones are double Avorion salvaging lasers, whatever. So the actual fighter doesn't really matter as long as it's under 200 blocks. Doesn't matter energy, none of that kind of stuff. That they don't worry about that stuff. Since we're building this ship, and this is what we talk about here. So the points, you'll get point systems, right? So for example, this one I'm going to use. We'll use that one, right? So you'll get 25 points for this fighter, because it depends on a couple different things. It depends on the material, and it depends on how powerful the weapon is here. For example, this is 45,000. If I use something that was smaller, say 2286, it's going to drop it down to 10. The more powerful weapon you use, and the better material, since this one's also Avorion, it depends on how powerful this weapon is, right? So if it's a double lightning weapon with 45,000, you're going to get 25. If you use something with a triple cannon, you're going to get 15. If you use something with an Ogonite, you're going to get, this one's is 1765, the coaxial, but it's also exotic. So especially if you use this one or that one. See, the numbers will change depending on, of course, what the weapon is being used. However, this number also changes if you are, depending on your, and unless something's changed, don't get me wrong, it's been a while since I did this, depends on where you at in the galaxy. I'm in the Avorion section, so I'm using Avorion, ships are going to be built out of Avorion. You'll get more points. Build them out here where the Tritium Xanian section is, you're going to get less points because of the material you're using. That's how it used to work. I still think it does still work that way, but for the most part, that's how that works. So back to the fighter factory. Since we've gone over that, showed you the different DPS and all that kind of stuff. The more powerful of the turret seems to help. The material that's used for the ship also seems to help for the number of points. So we're going to use let's see here. Do I have a couple of those laying around? Let's do the something we can use here. Double railgun, right? And we'll use that one. So since this is a double railgun, 1857, relatively cheap, 453,000. However, we're just going to go back to this one. The remaining points is 25. Combat fighter, size, durability, and of course price. This is all going to take into effect what kind of weapons you're going to use. So now I can use the lightning turret. I can go down here to the if I don't want to use an offensive one, I can also use GPS. I can make this out of the mining turret, which is the salvaging laser. Now the ship is going to be a salvage fighter, right? Use the lightning weapon. It's going to be an offensive fighter. I can use there's the repair turrets on here too. You can put a repair turret on this thing and make it defend the ship, and it will start, of course, repairing your ship, right? That's always something nice, having a squadron of repair fighters to run around and do things like that. Or I can use, for example, if I want to make a mining fighter, I would, of course, mount the Avorion mining turret here. And now this ship is going to become a mining fighter with efficiency of 12.7, 5.1 for damage per second. So like I said, you stick here. So if I want an anti-fighter turret, this is going to become an anti-fighter fighter, right? This thing will be able to chase down other fighters. Whatever your heart's desire, whatever you decide to use, whatever turret you decide to use and put on the ship is what you're going to get, obviously. You can sit here and mix and match depending on what you want to do with it. And of course, the prices are always going to change depending on what turrets you're using, what material they are, what they, how powerful they are, all that kind of stuff. Right? Pretty simple. So this is a double launcher turret. So let's do that. This one uses seeker missiles. We're going to turn this into a missile fighter. So we're going to put the double launcher turret on there. It only gives me 10 points. Whatever, we'll make it work. And 2286 here with just the launcher. When you downsize it, you're only going to get 137. Right? So essentially you're taking this and you're downsizing it to fit on a fighter. You're going to lose that damage per second. Excuse me. When you put it on a fighter. And we're going to leave it at the size 5. Of course, you can make it smaller. Oops. You can make it smaller. If you have a small fighter bay and you want to put a bunch of fighters in it, and you don't want to make a bigger one on your ship, of course you're going to downsize the size. I don't usually, I don't usually worry about it because I usually have such large fighter bays. I usually leave it at 5, and I can use my 10 points somewhere else. Durability, since it's going to be an actual fighter, I'm going to make sure that durability is going to be there when it gets into an actual fight. Same with maneuvering. Speed, not so much, because I believe this has got a range of 21.33 kilometers. So, it's going to be firing from a long ways away. It doesn't have to be super speedy to get there. We'll put a little bit more speed onto it. We're making it a little bit more durable. And of course, as you change these numbers, the fighter's going to get more expensive. So right now that fighter is 4 million credits. It's going to be using the double launcher turret. Now this turret, once I use this on the ship, is going to be taken away and used on the ship, so you'll no longer get to use it. If you want to make multiple fighters of the same kind, you can either actually buy them like this, or here shortly where I'm going to show you, I'm going to go build them. So we got the fighter, we're going to create it, and we removed the double launcher, and now according to my ship, I should have a launcher fighter. Yep, there he is. He's actually up here in my, that's the launcher fighter. So now I can simply just buy fighters like that, taking whatever turrets I have, creating fighters and buying them. However, there is another way of doing it, and that is called the assembly blocks. And we're going to look at this ship again from the build mode. This ship currently has 3,960 production capacity, and that's right here. These are the production blocks. These are made of Avorion. When I first got them, I think they were Tritium. They build, see, the improves production speed for hangars or factories. So you can add this on to your factories. I use them on the ships here. I only use it on this one ship, actually. The majority of my production capacity is actually on a shipyard. But we're going to show you what I'm talking about here. So these fighters right here are currently being built by with my production capacity of 3,960 a second, right? Each one of these fighters, I no longer have to pay credits. So if I want to build multiple fighters, say this salvage fighter here, I want to build multiple kinds of these fighters, this is how you do it. So now we just built this launcher fighter, and I want to take this launcher fighter and I want to make a bunch of them, right? So I'm going to take this launcher fighter here and I'm going to drop it. I'll drop it here in one of these queues down here that's not used. And once I do it, it will destroy the fighter, turn it into a blueprint, and this blueprint will, of course, start the build process in this queue down here. So these 12 slots down here, if I put that in there, we'll start producing that fighter 12 times, or as many times as you want, as long as you keep taking fighters out so the queue's open. You can produce as many fighters as you want of this launcher fighter. Pretty simple, right? So this will destroy the fighter, turn it into a blueprint, and you'll never see that fighter again. However, now the production of the ship is able to produce that fighter over and over and over again. Pretty simple. I'm not going to do that. Well, no, we'll show you how. Let's do it. There we go. So, launcher fighter, 137, and it's blue, so that means it's golden, and it's going to start producing this fighter here. In fact, I'll give you the production is disabled. Here I can, of course, turn it on. Once I turn it on, now it'll start producing this fighter here. It's going to cost me 12,625 Avorion in 1 hour and 26 minutes to make one fighter, right? So it's not going to cost me anything in cash. However, it's just going to cost me in time and Avorion. It's going to cost me, every fighter that's built is going to cost me 12,625 Avorion. These fighters up here cost me 36,000 Avorion to build. These are nothing but salvage fighters that replace these ones here that I lose when I'm salvaging or raiding, right? So this is just a small production capacity of 3,960 a second, right? So that's how you build fighters without having to pay every time, right? So once you buy the first initial fighter, turn it into a blueprint, you can build it as long as you have the production capacity. And those are found, I do believe you can start finding production capacity. I think it's in Tritium. Yep, right there. Tritium Assembly. So once you get Tritium Assembly, so we're going to show you, this is a pretty good chunk of Tritium right here. Assembly. In fact, it's 82,620 Tritium. And we'll see what it does to, so almost doubled my production capacity. Only to 7,000. As you can see, it's a pretty good sized block, and it's just going to look bulky as shit on your... so it's going to cost you a lot of money and lots of Tritium to put assemblies on your ships. So, I don't do that. This was when I first started, I didn't have a base or nothing like that, so I was still building my ships just by using the assembly blocks on my ship, right? Once I got a actual space that I could call my own, I switched to this. So this is my home shipyard, and it has, we'll go build mode, and you'll see here these massive blocks of here we go. These are some massive blocks of Avorion assembly. 560,860 a second, right? And these are super expensive to build. These are, so they 6,000. Yeah, so these are hundreds, millions of Avorion for these assembly blocks just to get 560,000. However, so building your fighters on your ship is okay, but if you really want to build a lot of fighters and crew many different carriers, it's best to do at a base. Specifically, this is being my home shipyard. This is where I produce most of my fighters, is here. And you can see here I have 5 assemblies running right now. These fighters are the high-end ones. These ones are brand new. These are better than the ones I carry on the Akagi. And these are costing me 161,000 Avorion. These salvage fighters, of course, you've already seen at 36. The lightning fighters costing me 161,000. Well, okay, the mining fighter, railgun fighter, 193,000 Avorion. The mining fighter is going to cost me 47,000 Avorion. So these are all Avorion based, so this is going to cost you a lot of material. So you're going to be constantly mining material to make sure you can produce these fighters. So as these fill up, I just simply move them down to the bottom of the queue, and these keep producing. As long as there's an open space, they'll keep producing fighters, right? So pretty soon I got to get another couple carriers built to come over here and start collecting my mining fighters and my salvage fighters, so I could take these all out of here and then start moving these down, right? So these other ones like the lightning fighter and the railgun fighter, I'll have to start stacking these on my actual fleet carriers, right? So I can start filling them back up again. I'm always moving fighters around to different everything. So that's the building of the fighter from the fighter, or if you're going to the equipment dock to do it. And of course, this is how you build the fighters if you don't want to spend the cash to do it individually at the fighter factory. But I will warn you, the production capacity to get 560,000 a second, considering these are roughly 10 minutes to produce the mining fighter and 42 minutes to produce the railgun fighter and 2 hours and 5 minutes to produce the lightning fighter. However, at 4,560 damage per second, these lightning fighters at 120 fighters on a carrier will simply decimate everything that you run into, even though it takes you almost 2 hours to build one. So, yeah, that is carriers and fighters. If you guys have any questions, let me know in the comments below about what you think about carriers and fighters. With that said, we're going to probably jump out of this. Hopefully I'm going to have another video up here next week with that cruiser design and all that kind of stuff. So thanks for watching, guys, and you guys have a good night.